Thank you so much, Juan Faiza. And it's daunting to go after Tanshri. It's such a tour de force. I relearned my donut economics all over again. And Tanshri, thank you also for the planetary boundaries concept. So, look, I think this is a meeting of minds already. So I don't need to go into maybe the whole what has already been said by YB Mustafa and Dato Ali and now Tanshri Jamila. So let me just bring in the maybe the UNDP perspective. But first, let me say my salutations to Excellency YB Dato Sri Mustafa Muhammad, Yang Berusaha Puan Zakia Zafar, Excellency Dato Ali Abdul Qadir, and Excellency Tanshi Jamila, Excellency Tengku Muhammad Tawfiq, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Very happy to be here, and thank you to Alam for having us here. Um, Let me maybe pick on two aspects that first the nexus, which in UN parlance we call the integration, the integrated solutions. The SDGs are an integrated agenda. Exactly as has been said, the nexus is first. It's very much central to UNDP's mandate. Um, as you probably know, there are some very famous UN agencies who work on sectoral issues: the UNICEF on children, ILO on labor, UNESCO on culture and education. But UNDP was really created to bring together the nexus of these sectoral work, particularly the interface of the environmental with the social, and the environmental with the economic, and the social with the environmental. So exactly the theme of your conference here today. And indeed, in our work, we struggle with this every day. We work closely with EPU. We work closely with 129 EPUs around the world. And it's always a challenge in the policy domain, how you balance the trade-offs between what would be roughly the economic goals. Goal 1, the alleviation of poverty. Goal 8, creation of jobs. Goal 9, infrastructure, reducing inequality, with the more environmental goals, if you like, sustainable consumption and production. Goal 12, Goal 13, climate change. Goal 15, protection of biodiversity, etc. So, and we see it play out very classically in Malaysia as well. In Tanshri's donut presentation, you saw that Malaysia is exceeding the planetary boundaries in a number of parameters. And it's a conversation that we're having with policymakers and practitioners on the ground every day. The example I'd really like to think of most often is Sarawak could easily, colleagues, give up another 100,000 hectares to black pepper cultivation, which, as you know, is a very steady commodity in the world in global trade. It's very profitable, and it doesn't fluctuate. And Sarawak's black pepper is extremely high quality, and the global demand for black pepper is in the red, because black pepper has gone beyond a kitchen condiment to become a fashion accessory. It's an antioxidant, so it goes into almost every fashion product. So there's a huge demand for black pepper in the world, and Malaysia could really make a killing in balance of trade by giving up another 100,000 hectares of forests to black pepper cultivation. And there's a lot of economic arguments. It's a sector which mostly employs women. It's a sector which employs mostly B40 orang asli. It's a sector which creates ancillary jobs, and jobs in general, but also it creates a number of ancillary jobs around it. So you could, but then on the other hand, you're of course struggling with the loss of biodiversity, the loss of this growth of monoculture in Malaysia. The commodities, the plantations that are taking over quite a bit of rainforest space. And as Dato Ali said at the beginning, how much should we give up for this? And YB Mustafa said as well, how much of our biodiversity assets can we give up? So one of the pieces of work we are doing in UNDP is we are actually putting a monetary value. We are doing an econometric calculation of conservation. And some of our work has gone into the policy domain. The ecological fiscal transfers that was gazetted in the 2021 budget, the one before this, is actually a piece of work by UNDP. It's a conservation bonus from federal government to state governments. It's a conservation transfer. It's now been gazetted as law. Sorry, it has to be ratified into law, but it's been gazetted. Same with economic versus social. You saw during the pandemic the rapid benefits of digitalization. We all got on our computers, we all got on trade and commerce, e-commerce thrived. And yet we found so many small and medium enterprises were not on the e-commerce bandwidth. Ministry of Education is early estimates at the beginning of the pandemic is almost 40% students still do not possess an electronic device for education, if education were to move fully online. 11.3% of Malaysians still do not are still not online. A lot of them, by the way, people above 60 years old. So while the whole digital bandwagon was moving, the top 5 billionaires are all digital billionaires. We are still struggling with the big issue of digital inequality. So there you are, another thing that we face on a daily basis in our work in UNDP. But the other theme I wanted to pick up, which is what I titled the presentation today, is the issue of lasting. What is durable? Variously called sustainable or lasting or durable. The most obvious slide back, you see, development is not static. We don't get to a place and remain there. The most obvious slide back is during COVID, of course, as you saw, so many people lost jobs. Gig workers lost jobs big time, did not have the social safety nets to carry on their basic minimum economic needs. 600,000 families, according to EPU, slipped from M40 to B40. So slide back is a real problem. That's the 600,000 families is about 1/5. One in every 5 M40 persons slipped into B40 status. So slide back is a real issue also, and not to be taken for granted. Human development, which is UNDP's kind of composite index of measurement of human well-being, is likely to go back to 1990 standards when we actually do the final calculation for the year at the end of this year. So for the first time in 30 years, human development is actually going to show a slide back. Environmental slide back, I don't need to talk about it. The IPCC panel, code red, as the Secretary General has characterized it, and Malaysia's the projected impact of Malaysia or of climate change on Malaysia. The two most prevalent phenomena likely to happen are heat waves and excessive precipitation, i.e., rainfall in very concentrated periods of time, i.e., flooding and heat waves, which has, of course, catastrophic consequences for particularly agriculture and food security. And as this audience and panel knows, Malaysia is not very strong on food security. Your food import bill is 50 billion ringgit annually. So further shocks to the food system is something that that we will need to think through very, very carefully. So so where from here, or as Malaysians like to say, so how? So how? Clearly, from all that has been said so far, integrated solutions have to be designed. We have to check for the impact of one parameter on another, the covariance and inverse variance. That's a no-brainer. UNDP is strongly suggesting nature-based solutions as a way to think, green mobility, green energy, circular economy. Just thinking of more and more nature-based solutions, and I'm sure I'm sure Tenko Tofik will agree that green energy will be even more profitable than fossil fuel energy. So there's lots there. It's not a loss. There can be a win-win. Second, solutions have to be inclusive. And one of my heroes of inclusive solution thinking is Tan Sri Jamila. When the vaccines first arrived in Malaysia, the UN went to Tan Sri and YB Khairi and said, please, will it be all of society vaccines, not just Malaysian citizens? And there was not a minute's hesitation. They said, of course, everybody gets the vaccine. Migrant, non-citizen diplomats like me, this is it. We have to think of leaving no one behind, because there is no way the person who works in your home, or the person who drives your car, or the person who does your gardening, or the person who does your garbage picking cannot be vaccinated while you can be vaccinated. And COVID showed that it's a great, pandemics can be great levelers. So definitely inclusive solutions. We have to rethink social safety nets. In fact, rethink the entire social contract. How do we, because inequality, as you can see, colleagues, not just income inequality, inequalities of opportunity, the digital divide, inequalities are exploding. And the third and fourth big wave, the biodiversity collapse and the climate change wave, inequalities will actually, if nothing is done, inequalities will worsen. It's as simple as that. A fourth area is incentives and regulations. We really have to look at this area. Banks, Bank Negara and other central banks around the world are getting very progressive in what kind of investments assets are being held in, how are investments being deployed, green, brown, or not. We have to look at fossil fuel subsidies, colleagues, around the world. We are in the range of $430 trillion a year in fossil fuel subsidies. Sorry, Tenku, don't hate me for it. I'll still come and say, shake your hand, but we really need to think about fossil fuel subsidies. That alone, the 260 billion of preventive work that Tan Sri showed, you see, fossil fuel subsidies alone can take care. Just that alone can take care of that. We have to think about this. Tax avoidance and other fiscal termites. I don't need to say more. But the thing I want to sort of end with is Alam's mandate, the winning of hearts and minds, and that UNDP has actually put that out there as something we believe in. Social norms have to change. Our behaviors have to change. Individual behaviors have to change. We have to model a certain kind of behavior for our children, for our nephews and nieces, for our grandchildren, and all of them. And young people, as YB was saying, young people are clearly the big target here. So bravo, Alam, great mandate that you've taken on. It includes the unlearning of past assumptions, obviously. And and UNDP is doing a lot of work in here, but I see that Puan Wan is already on my case, so I will stop here. And looking forward to the conversation later. Thank you so much.